You're driving home, it's late. The roads are quiet. Then you see the flashing lights in your rearview mirror. You pull over safely, turn off the engine, and wait. The officer walks up, shines a flashlight into your window, and after the usual license and registration, he leans in and says, "Mind if I take a quick look in your trunk?" What you say in the next few seconds can mean the difference between driving away with your privacy intact or watching an officer tear through your belongings on the side of the road. Most people, wanting to be helpful and believing they have nothing to hide, simply say, "Sure, go ahead." With that one word, they just gave up their Fourth Amendment rights. The officer no longer needs a warrant, no longer needs probable cause, because you consented. And once that trunk is open, anything inside becomes fair game. But you don't have to make that mistake. Stick with me, and I'll give you the exact legal script to shut down a trunk search, the key Supreme Court cases that protect you, and the specific steps you can take right now to keep cops out of your trunk. Before I break down the 4 ways police try to get into your trunk, do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button and tap the bell. You do not want to be searching for this video while you're sitting on the side of the road with an officer waiting for an answer. Let's start with the most common way police try to justify a trunk search, the automobile exception based on probable cause. Under the Fourth Amendment, police generally need a warrant to search your property, but cars are mobile. The Supreme Court recognized that if an officer had to wait for a warrant every time, a suspect could simply drive away. So in the 1925 case, Carroll versus United States, the court created the automobile exception. It allows officers to search a vehicle without a warrant if they have probable cause to believe it contains evidence of a crime. Later cases, like United States versus Ross from 1982, made clear that if probable cause justifies a search, it extends to every part of the car where the object of the search could be hidden, including the trunk and any containers inside. But here's what most people don't realize. Probable cause is not a hunch or a feeling. It requires specific, articulable facts that would lead a reasonable person to believe evidence of a crime is present. An officer cannot simply say, "I think you might have something back there," or "Your eyes look red," and then demand access to your trunk. They must be able to point to something concrete, an odor of drugs coming from the trunk, a weapon visible when you opened it, or a reliable tip that you're transporting contraband. And even then, the search must be limited to areas where the suspected evidence could reasonably be found. So if an officer claims probable cause to search your trunk, you have every right to ask them to explain exactly what facts they are relying on. Recording the encounter on your phone, which is your First Amendment right, forces the officer to articulate those facts in real time, not later in a written report that can be polished after the fact. You can say, "Officer, are you claiming you have probable cause to search my trunk? Can you tell me specifically what evidence you believe is back there?" This puts the officer on notice that you know your rights and makes them think twice about stretching the truth. The second way police get into your trunk is the most common and the most dangerous: consent. It is also the easiest to shut down. The officer will make it sound casual. "Hey, mind if I take a quick look?" You've got nothing to hide, right? It'll only take a second. Because you're nervous and want to be cooperative, you might be tempted to say, "Sure, go ahead." Under the Supreme Court case, Schneckloth versus Bustamante, if you freely and voluntarily consent to a search, the officer no longer needs a warrant or even probable cause. That consent authorizes them to search your entire vehicle, including your trunk, and even to dismantle parts of your car if they believe evidence could be hidden there. They can pull up your floor mats, remove your seats, and empty out every bag you own, and everything they find becomes admissible in court. The single most important phrase you will ever memorize is this: "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Say it calmly, clearly, and as many times as you need to. You are not being rude. You are exercising a constitutional right. If the officer persists, you can add, "I am not consenting. If you have probable cause or a warrant, you may proceed, but I do not consent." That simple statement closes the door on the easiest way police get into trunks. The third way police try to access your trunk is through a search incident to arrest. If the officer arrests you, even for a minor traffic violation, they may claim the right to search your car under New York v. Belton, which allows a search of the passenger compartment within the arrestee's immediate control. But the Supreme Court later limited that rule in the 2009 case Arizona v. Gant. Under Gant, a warrantless search incident to arrest is only allowed if 2 conditions are met. Either the arrestee is still within reaching distance of the passenger compartment, so they might grab a weapon or destroy evidence, or it is reasonable to believe the vehicle contains evidence related to the crime of arrest. For most routine traffic stops, speeding, a broken taillight, even a suspended license, the trunk is not within the driver's reach, and the trunk is unlikely to contain evidence of that offense. Therefore, police generally cannot search your trunk just because they arrested you for a traffic ticket. If an officer tries this, you can say, Officer, under Arizona v. Gant, my trunk is outside the scope of a search incident to arrest. I do not consent. This is a more advanced legal argument, but it can stop an overreaching officer in their tracks. The fourth way police can legally search your trunk is through an inventory search when your car is impounded. If the officer decides to have your vehicle towed, the department is required to perform an inventory search, an administrative listing of all items in the car to protect the owner's property and the department from liability. This is not supposed to be a criminal investigation, but anything incriminating they find during the inventory can be used against you. The key limitation is that the impoundment must be lawful, and the inventory must follow the department's written policy to the letter. If the department's policy allows the vehicle to be released to a licensed driver instead of being towed, and you have a passenger or someone nearby with a valid license, you can prevent the impoundment altogether. Simply say, "Officer, I would like to release my vehicle to a licensed driver to avoid impoundment." This forces the officer to follow their own policy and often stops the inventory search before it starts. If they still tow the car, you can add, "I do not waive my rights. I expect this inventory search to follow official department policy." That statement creates a legal record that can help your attorney challenge any improper search later. Now let's talk about states where you have even stronger protections. In New Jersey and Pennsylvania, the state courts have ruled that the automobile exception is not enough. Under New Jersey law, police need both probable cause and an actual emergency, what courts call exigent circumstances, to search your trunk without a warrant. In other words, if an officer pulls you over for a traffic violation and develops probable cause for a trunk search, they cannot simply search on the spot. They must first secure the scene and get a warrant, either electronically or by phone, unless there is a genuine emergency like a bomb threat or a fleeing suspect. So if you live in New Jersey or Pennsylvania, you can say, "Officer, under state law, you are required to have a warrant to search my trunk unless there is an emergency. I do not consent. If you claim an emergency, please articulate it now." Other states with similar heightened protections include Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, Montana, Vermont, and New Hampshire. In these states, you can cite the specific constitutional provision. For example, in New Mexico, you can say, "Under Article 2, Section 10 of the New Mexico Constitution, you need a warrant to search my trunk. I do not consent." Knowing your state's laws gives you extra ammunition. What about practical steps you can take right now to protect your privacy? First, use your car's valet mode if it has one. This disables the interior trunk release, so even if an officer gets into your passenger compartment, they cannot pop the trunk from inside. Second, if you live in a state with heightened protections, keep a small card in your glove compartment with the exact phrasing of your state's constitutional provision. Third, store your valuables in a locked box inside your trunk. Multiple courts, including in New Mexico, have held that a locked container inside a vehicle requires its own separate probable cause to be opened. Even if an officer lawfully gets into your trunk, they may not be able to force open a locked box without a warrant or your consent. Fourth, never keep your registration or insurance in your trunk. You should always have those in your wallet or glove compartment so you never have to open your trunk during a stop. Fifth, stay calm, keep your hands on the steering wheel, and avoid sudden movements. If you become defensive or aggressive, the officer can claim officer safety concerns and order you out of the car under Pennsylvania v. Mims, potentially escalating the encounter. And finally, always record. Use your phone or a dash cam. You have a First Amendment right to record police officers in public as long as you do not interfere. That recording captures exactly what the officer said, what you said, and whether you clearly refused consent. Let me give you a full example of how this conversation might sound. The officer says, "Mind if I check your trunk?" You say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Are you claiming probable cause, or do you have a warrant?" The officer says, "I smell something. I think I have probable cause." You say, "I still do not consent. If you believe you have probable cause, you may proceed, but I'm not giving you permission." The officer says, "Step out of the car." You comply, then lock your doors and keep your keys. You then say, "I'm going to remain silent and I want a lawyer." That is your right. You have not given consent, you have not admitted anything, and you have preserved every defense for your attorney. Now let me summarize the exact phrases you need to memorize. When an officer asks to search your trunk, say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." If they claim probable cause, say, "I still do not consent." Please articulate the specific facts you believe justify probable cause. If they threaten to arrest you or impound your car, ask, "Can I release my vehicle to a licensed driver to avoid impoundment?" And if the situation escalates, say, "I'm going to remain silent. I will not answer any further questions without my attorney present." Practice these phrases at home. Say them out loud. Because when you're on the side of the road with a flashlight in your window, you do not want to think. You want your mouth to know what to say automatically. And remember, none of this is legal advice for your specific situation. Laws vary by state, and court interpretations of these cases can differ. If you are ever charged with a crime or have questions about your specific encounter, consult a local attorney who knows the judges and prosecutors in your area. If this video helped you understand how to protect your trunk and your privacy, hit that like button right now. It helps more people find these videos when they need them. Subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss an update when I post new breakdowns of police interactions and your rights. And drop a comment below. Have you ever been asked to open your trunk? What happened? I read every comment, and I will see you in the next video.